Yo, 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 yo. What is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and yes, I got another hot one for you today. This is a question I have been getting from people that know that I just have a bazillion accounts, or at least one in each kingdom, on, boss, what is the state? What's the health of each kingdom? Or better yet, just what is their migration status, right? And I'll give you an example here. So, at the moment, we have, and we're going to show you all the kingdoms as well. Got a lovely spreadsheet where we're going to actually display what the current kingdom health is before migration opens for a large group of kingdoms. However, let's start off first by just kind of going over the migration process in short, and then we'll dive right in. So, when you get into a specific kingdom, the migration window will come up. It says, hey, here's the start date. You get a 24-hour clock, and then it'll go into a 3-day window, right, from our current understanding. Now, preview. This will show you what the current status is, right? Now, you can't click on any of these, right? We have normal, active, crowded, and full, and you can see that indicated on the kingdoms from their baseball diamond and the color that's in them. Okay, now, let's know. Now, I want to point out before I show you the spreadsheet, right? The important part, and the reason I like doing it this way first, is because we're able to take a look at the kind of raw status of or authentic status of activity within the home kingdoms before migration opens, right? Before people start moving around, and then I'm also going to try and do one of these, if I can remember, at the end of the migration status. Okay, here we go. So we put this sheet together on, I put the sheet together, starting with these kingdoms. Now, obviously, 1-6, I think I missed out on just a few of these ones. However, 11 through 22, we can't get to yet, just because, or 11 through 21, because that's SSS 1-28, so we have to wait a little while. I think they still have 14 or 14 plus days until their season, gosh, I'm forgetting the timeline, ends. Okay, however, we can at least do Kingdoms 23, and we actually go all the way down to 90, okay? So, here we go. We're going to start at the top, right? So, I pulled this data. Some of the data you can see here, and specifically, I should say 27. Through 90, because 23, I have to remember 23, 24, 25, and 26 are already in S2-1 with Kingdoms 1 through 10 as well. So it's 1 through 10, and then 23, 24, 25, and 26 are there. So we're really looking at 27 through 90 here. But again, and I want to point out, this sheet it will be made public. I'm going to have this in the description, pinned comment down below, so you're more than welcome to access it, right? Most of the sheets that I do are always publicly accessible. That's where you can find them. So, starting here, right, we have a lot of normals. Most of these are normals, actives, and then normals, and then we kind of have crowded and full that are tied. Right now, there's only 3 full kingdoms here, which basically means, from what we understand, that no one can go, no one can migrate to those kingdoms, right? That's 31, 32, and 33, right? So basically, you have the kingdom before global, the kingdom at global, and then the next kingdom after the global opening kingdom, right? So kind of it makes sense if you're thinking about it from that timeline of how they're being filled. Then you have crowded. Crowded, basically, the thing we don't know what crowded means, right? I actually asked to see if we might be able to get an answer before I recorded this video. I just haven't heard back yet on what crowded means. However, I would like to believe that if full means 0, crowded cannot mean 0, right? Crowded, to me, would have to mean maybe one. I'm saying 75 to 100, maybe 50, but for some reason, if I'm thinking about 200 is a little bit more than half of 350, so to me, 100 plus or minus actually seems like a good number. So I'm going to go with tentatively 100. That's my speculation, right, for crowded. And again, you can see those 34, 36, and 26. And obviously 26 isn't in here, but 34 and 36 are going to be in this group. Then if we talk about actives and then normals, you can see that there's this consistency, right? Where a lot of the kingdoms, and we're going to show you this too as well, a lot of the kingdoms, for the most part, are active. And there's a big thing we're going to touch on here at the end. And then you start getting some spread outs here, like some normals from 46, 48, 51. And as you continue to go down, we also have the numbers. Now, you can also see here, right, we got 3 fulls, 3 crowdeds, 41 actives, and then we have 19 normals, right? That's kind of our list. Now it stops because 91 plus is still about 2 weeks out as well, so they haven't came across their migration yet. However, the big thing I want to point out here, the thing that it feels as though almost no one is talking about or just asking the right question, which is, if, for example, I have set numbers of slots based on normal, active, and crowded kingdoms. The thing that is very interesting to me is, one, how are they actually declaring, how are they labeling kingdoms these ways, right? Is it based on, now first off, now bear in mind, I say this rhetorically because we know some information, but not the actual specifics that we would really need to know to actually have a better idea. For example, we know that for low players, for low-powered players, inactive accounts, they're not inactively low players, I should say, right? Because inactive is the most important. They're not counting those. And then you have the super high-end players that could be like your 1 through 5s, your 1 through 10s. But again, we don't know, right? Are they limiting people that are 100 mil plus, 90 mil plus? Are they going through each kingdom and looking at what the power and look what the power differential is between the top players and then the kind of middle of the pack? Do they look at the top 3, the top 5, the top 10, the top 20? We don't know that, for why they would remove those from your average contention, right? If you look at a game like Rock, they typically just average kingdom power based on the top 300 individual players, and they just give you a sum total, right? Which is, again, regardless if you agree or disagree, it's very straightforward, and it's easy to understand. Now, the challenge here is that you could have, and I'll give you a great example. Let's say you have these 3 active kingdoms. Well, one of these kingdoms could have 1,000 active players. Another kingdom could have 600 active players. Another kingdom maybe has 250 active players. Normal, maybe that means they have 200 active players. Maybe this one is 150, 100, whatever it may be. My point in saying this is that because we do not know what the true activity numbers are in kingdoms, as an example, if they did something where they calculated, Infinity Kingdom did a really good job of this, and I mentioned this a couple times, where they had these statuses for alliances that would be, I think it was like hyper, active, like decent or something like that, and then like low, whatever it may have been. Hyper was if you logged in 3 times within a 24-hour period. Active is if you logged in 1 time within a 24-hour period, right? Then decent was like 1 time within 2 or 3 days that you logged in, that type of a thing. If kingdoms kept track of that and then they showed that data publicly within the home kingdoms, which again, we'd actually have to you would either have to be able to go back to a home kingdom, or they would have to provide individual home kingdom leaderboards that you could access, even if you're unable to go back, but that players from those home kingdoms could still be able to view. Then you could still potentially have that data that's showing without actually needing to go back to a home kingdom, as an example. But knowing that information is incredibly important. Why? Because if you have kingdoms that have different true activities, it doesn't make sense to have a flat slot open rate for migration, right? If Kingdom 77 has 1,000 players, okay, 200 makes sense. If 78 has 800 active players, then why isn't this 400, right? Because remember, one of the things they talked about in their announcement post, which we're going to show this off here, right? Let's go back to the Discord. Bear with me a moment while I'm just pulling this up. Let's show off a Discord. And again, we're going to hammer this point home, is if we go to the announcement they made here about the server migration details, right? What was one of the things they talked about? Was where is it? Excessive power, gaining server. Hang on, where is it? Individual strength, development, overall capabilities, individual strength, organizational strength already reached limits. Hang on, where are we going? Where is it? They mentioned something about balancing here, and I really want to find it. Halfway done, leaders, destination, crowded. I feel like it might have been one of the things up here. Let's see. Maybe we just need to read a little bit. Here we go. Right, so the decision to designate a server as full is aiming at maintaining competitive balance across all servers. So again, right, and they also said, right, this measure also serves to prevent certain servers from gaining excessive power and to avoid undue concentration of lords on a single server, which has the potential to disrupt balance of matchmaking, right? So what they're saying is they want to balance matchmaking and they want to have they want to maintain and sustain competitive balance across servers. So if you're trying to do that, then and bear in mind, this is really a bigger issue, right? This is a bigger topic, and I'm going to make like the best point here in a moment. But if you're trying to do these things, then it's important that you are almost prorating the amount, right? You're proportionalizing the amount of migration slots that a kingdom needs, not necessarily based on its tier status, if you will. And I'm only saying that because we don't know what the actual tier status entails. We don't know what the true activity numbers are. If the range is small enough to, let's say, for example, active means you have between 1,000 and 1,500. Okay, then maybe you can sell me on 200 cap as a baseline, right? However, the kingdoms that are on the lower end of that range would probably still say, well, hey, that doesn't make sense or isn't fair, because then that means if we bring 200 people in, another kingdom brings 200 in, they'll have 1,700 active people, we'll only have 1,200. So my point is if you're trying to have some level of competitive balance, you need to be consistent across the board, right? You need to have the same level of threshold that you're allowing for players to join. So if you say that threshold for every kingdom is, let's say, 5,000 active players in a kingdom, right? Then you should allow up to 5,000 people, and I don't mean like 5,000 open slots. I mean if a kingdom has 1,200 active people, then the remaining slots for that kingdom should just be simply 3,800, right? Just keep it simple. However, I also understand, and first off, let me also point out, right, that the amount of slots I'm talking about is more so for the lower end, or for the lower active kingdoms. I'm not necessarily talking about for kingdoms 31, 32, and 33. It makes sense that they would have a lower amount. We're talking for the active, normal kingdoms, right? And then the active ones, right? Where you're proportionalizing it based on that. Because normal essentially would mean that you have the lowest amount of average activity across the kingdom for what we can guesstimate across a 24-hour period. So for there, it may make sense where you look at, okay, well, what's the threshold? The threshold, arguably, even if it's not 5K, you could also view the threshold as, well, what's the total amount of active players per 24 hours in Kingdoms 31, 32, 33? Bam, now that's the player cap threshold, right? So you could also do something like that if you want to kind of preset it without saying, okay, we're going to max the threshold out at 5K, right? Again, the tiers are understandable why they have those in. I would just like for it to be done in a way that allows for more of those players to join kingdoms that are normal, and then a little bit less for active, and so on and so forth. But I would just, among what I would hope would be us, we'd like to know what that data actually is. How are they defining? How many active players need to be in a kingdom for it to be within the active range, for it to be within normal range, for it to be within crowded, for it to be within full? What does that mean? We don't know that information. And it would be nice to know. Anyways, that is going to do it for me on this one. I hope you all enjoyed taking a look at some interesting activity status data here in Call of Dragons for these 27 through, I think, right? 27 through 90 group. I'm going to keep trying to do the future groups too as well. And like I said, if I'm able to remember to do them at the end to show you maybe how they've changed and how they've shifted, we'll do that. As well, as long as I remember. So with that in mind, would love to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments down below. That's going to do it for me. As always, until next time, I will catch you later.